I can't believe it, you guys. It's finally time. Hello everyone, it's me, Scarlett Kol, young adult author of dystopian, fairy tale, fantasy, and paranormal novels. If you've been following my channel for any time period lately, you'll notice that I've been away for a few weeks. I will have a video upcoming as to why that is and what was going on. But for right now, I have to talk about one thing because it is release day for me. Yes, that's right. It is release day for my book, Sleepless. This is my planner cover. Hopefully you like the cover. It's very pretty. I love it. I don't actually have a paperback copy of it yet. I'm very paranoid about uploading drafts to Ingram Spark that aren't final, and so I don't have a paperback copy of it yet because I did put up my final draft, order a copy, and being in Canada, it takes so much longer for us to receive anything that I don't actually have a physical copy of my book yet, even though it's release day. I know there's a lot of YouTubers and other authors out there that will order like draft copies, so they will have a physical paperback, but I was so scared that they were gonna print the wrong file because I've heard of that happening so many times that I just wasn't really willing to risk it, and now here I am without a paperback. But maybe going forward in the future, I will time these things out a little bit better and I will manage to get the paperback, or I will get my courage up and end up ordering a, I guess, dummy copy of my book before it's completely finished. Anyhow, it is release day and I am so excited for this. So I wanted to talk about this book and 10 things about this book that you may or may not know. So this book has been a lot of work for me. I've been at this for a really long time. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in my 10 points about this book, but I am super duper excited that it is out already in the world and that people get to read it. So I'm pumped about that. So let's get started. 10 things can take up a lot of time, so let's get moving. So the first thing about this book, it is the cursed book. So if you've been following my channel at all, I have talked about this before, and the curse related to the play of Macbeth. If you know anything about Shakespeare, Macbeth is considered a cursed play. The reason for that is it is assumed that Shakespeare included actual spells in the play of Macbeth and it made some witches angry, so they cursed the play. So anybody who uses the title of the play is therefore supposed to be cursed. So this is something that is prevalent in actor circles where they won't actually reference the name of the play. It will just be called the Scottish play or the cursed play that they're working on. In this particular story, I do reference Macbeth a lot, and it's not a retelling, even though I've been known to do retellings. It just carries some of the themes of Macbeth, and I do reference Macbeth as this is one of the subjects that the students are studying in school while all of the events of the novel are going on. But I do have some themes and quotes and things like that. However, this book has also been the biggest challenge for me. It's been one of the hardest books for me to write because I did start it way back, which I'll talk about again, and I've reconstructed it, rewritten it. It has been in so many different versions and I've changed so many things that it definitely is the cursed book. All of my friends who have been following my journey definitely know that I have struggled so much with this book, and I'm so glad for it to be out in the world, and hopefully the curse will finally be broken. Okay, number 2. So I said I started this book a long time ago. I actually started it in 2013 for Nanowrimo. Nanowrimo in 2013 was the first time I tried doing Nanowrimo, and if you've ever heard of that, or Nanowrimo, however you want to pronounce it, is National Novel Writing Month, where you try to write 50,000 words within a month. So I did that with this book in 2013, and it is the first time I actually won Nano as well, at like 11:55 on the last day. That's because I started it. I was actually grading for a course as well as doing my regular job, plus trying to write this book. So I was very busy at the time, and I started to quit. Basically, I got really frustrated. I quit writing it halfway through, and then I sucked it up and I decided, hey, you know what? I might not get my 50,000 words, but I might as well try and get as much done as possible, because that's the point, right? the point of NaNoWriMo is to write consistently and to get those words out, so I figured I might as well try and get as much done as I can. And it turns out I managed to get those 50,000 words right under the buzzer. It was also the first time that I used Scrivener because I'd never used the program before, but they did have a 30-day trial, so I thought it would be a good idea for me to try to use Scrivener over NaNoWriMo, so I got to learn to use it really, really quickly because I didn't really have any other choice because that's how I started my manuscript. It's really good for me because I do write out of chronological order most times, so Scrivener works really, really well for my process. Number 3, yes, I do have them written down. 10 is a lot to remember. So number 3, the town that this story takes place in is called Leith, Illinois. I have a habit, for a reason, of creating fictional towns grounded in physical places. So for instance, Shady Creek, Michigan does not exist. That's from Wicked Descent. And all of these faraway Iowa, these are places that are in real states but are fictional names and are grounded by actual cities. So in this one, I do reference Chicago. In Wicked Descent, I reference Detroit. So it's something that allows people to ground where the story takes place, yet it gives me full creative control to create a town exactly how I need it to be or exactly how I want it to be, depending on what I want to do with it. The interesting thing about this town being called Leith is that Leith is, and maybe I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but this is how I read it, Leith is the term for oblivion or forgetfulness in Greek. And it is related to the river in Hades that if you were to drink the water that you would forget things. In this particular story, we have a heroine who is forgetting things. Basically, what happens in this story is we have our main character, Berkeley James. She is struggling with some stress-induced insomnia, and she decides to go outside and take care of a small fire that seems to have broken out behind her house. She's pretty responsible, so she just doesn't want this to cause a problem. She thinks it's just some punk kids from off the street, so she's just going to take out the fire extinguisher, deal with it, and move on with her life because she's got nothing better to do because she can't sleep. Anyhow, while she's out there, she gets blasted with this green light that comes basically out of nowhere. And then she goes home and wakes up in her own bed. She believes it's a dream for a long period of time until she finds out that things keep happening at night that she's not aware of and that she's forgetting, and she is unaware of those things that are happening. So this gets progressively worse through the novel, and we get to meet other characters and find out more about where this green light came from and what that means and how that's impacting her sleep. So I thought that Leith was a really, really good name because it related to that forgetfulness, oblivion type thing that Berkeley has going on with her head. A lot of this story is about the fact that she forgets things and not being able to grasp onto them. So I thought it was a really great name for a town. Much like Macbeth, the story also has 3 witches in it. There are actually additional witches, but there's 3 core witches that we deal with the most in this story. And the reason I love writing witches is because just I love the history and all of the things that are involved in witchcraft. I absolutely love that. I've written witches before. I'm writing witches again. I have a few different series coming up that I have planned that will be involving witches. I just really, really like writing witches in various different ways. Anyway, it also required me to do a lot of research because I did want to do this right. So I did a lot of research, and one of the things that I ended up finding out about is I ended up researching and learning how to do exorcism in 3 different ways. So sometimes they can lead you down very interesting paths when you are doing research for a book, but I did find it completely fascinating. There were some images that came up on the internet that I would never wish on anybody to come across, but it was definitely worth it for the book, and I think that it definitely helped with the authenticity of the story. Speaking of witches, I'm not really surprised that I like them because I grew up watching the original The Craft movie. I have actually seen the remake, and it's actually not too bad, but I loved the original The Craft movie. And just like my last witch book, I do have a reference to the movie The Craft within some of the dialogue. I had referenced it in Wicked Descent as well, which also involves witches, where I referenced spinning pencils, which refers to a scene with Neve Campbell as she is spinning a pencil on its end when Sarah comes into the room. In this particular scene, in this book, I was referencing there is a scene in The Craft where they are driving down the street and they are coming up to red lights and they seem to magically be changing to green. And we're not really sure if it's the characters that are magically doing that or if it happens to be really, really good timing. So in this book, I do reference that scene in terms of changing red lights. So hopefully you will find it. It's a little bit of an Easter egg in there. Anybody who's watched The Craft hopefully is going to maybe trigger something in their memory. I'm really hoping for that. Otherwise, it's just a really cool thing that I liked that I included. As cool as the witches are, I do have another trilogy of characters that I really, really loved writing in this book, and that is the main characters, Berkeley, Lane, and Ethan. These characters I loved writing because they are best friends, and they've been best friends for a really long time, and I loved writing that dynamic. I'm super used to writing a lot of romance, and I do have romance in the story, but the best friend dynamic was something that I really, really wanted to get across. However, one of the characters that surprised me while I was writing them was the character of Berkeley's boyfriend, Josh. I had originally set up Josh to be a little bit more stereotypical, which honestly was probably not a good thing in terms of writing. I should have had him a little bit more well-rounded. Anyhow, I ended up getting to a particular scene where him and Berkeley are having an argument. And for the first time, I realized I was writing it completely wrong because I was actually taking Josh's side in this argument. I was going against my main character and realized that this guy's kind of got a point. At that instance, I realized I needed to completely scrap this character, rewrite him, and rework him back into the story. It's a great thing when that happens because it makes the story so much better, but it is definitely a lot more work. Speaking of more work is my choice in point of view. In this particular story, I am writing in first person. This should not be surprising because all of my books are in first person. However, when you have a character that isn't aware of their actions for large parts of the story, this does make things very, very difficult to write because you're still trying to make it interesting and exciting for the reader. However, they aren't actually going along with the character on those adventures because the character isn't conscious. So this was definitely a challenge, and I stopped a couple of times through reevaluating that choice of whether or not this was the right point of view that I wanted to take. In the end, this is what I decided to do, and I still feel that this is the right thing for the story, but had I written it in third person, it probably would have been much easier to tell the tale than the first person choice that I did end up making. Okay, we're almost through number 9. There is an alternate cover to Sleepless. Originally, when I had asked to get this cover done, I worked with the wonderful Kim Cunningham at Atlantis Book Designs, and when she created the cover, it was absolutely gorgeous. If you see it, the dress, there is a scene kind of in there. Originally, when she had created it, she had all these beautiful like trees and this whole vast landscape underneath that dress, and it was absolutely beautiful. The only problem was it looked just like summer. Once you read the book, you're going to understand that this definitely takes place in the fall. It is in the end of September, beginning of October, so it's got that fall vibe. I describe a lot of fall scenes. There's lots of leaves, all that kind of stuff. So it was really, really difficult for me to accept a cover that was going to have this beautiful summer scene underneath her dress. So I did have her change it, so now that we have leaves and all that kind of stuff flowing through, but the detail on that original dress was absolutely stunning. In retrospect, I should have told her it was a fall story when I gave her the original brief, but sometimes you just learn things as you go. And number 10 is that this book is now released. So I'm very excited for this to be my release day. It is now available in ebook at all the major platforms as well as paperback. I know for sure it's up at Amazon, and that link for Barnes & Noble should be up shortly if it isn't up already. So hopefully you are going to love this book. It is also distributed through Ingram Spark. So if you do want a copy for your library, you can definitely ask your librarian to see if they will bring that in. I have it distributed through Overdrive as well as Baker & Taylor. So if they do want it for ebook for the library, that's also available as well. So if some witchy young adult is your thing, you might want to check it out. Or if you know somebody else who would like a book like this, then maybe, hopefully, you will let them know. However, those are some things about Sleepless. I will be getting back to more of my regular content in the upcoming weeks, but hopefully you enjoyed this little snippet of this little book that has been plaguing me since 2013. I really hope you enjoy it. And if you are enjoying this content and the other content on my channel, please make sure you're hitting that subscription bar and the notification bell below this video. And if you liked it, make sure you're hitting the thumbs up while you're down there. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Scarlett Kol, and I will see you all next week.